Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the session on Has Your Bank Gone to Pot? Thank you Western Bankers Association for inviting me and Jim Tingey to participate in this conference. I'd like to first start off by introducing both of us to you. Our first speaker will be Jim Tingey. Jim has over 30 years of senior management experience in diverse business fields, including high-risk electronic banking and specialty banking and fintech companies. Jim serves as president and CEO of Financial Services Solution, a U.S. and international management consulting corporation in the area of specialized high-risk payments and electronic banking, including fintech financial services. He also serves as a president and CEO of Jade Compliance, a California corporation specializing in cannabis banking. Another reason why he's such an authority on this subject is because he prepared the state banking dissertation for California. Prior to the current roles, Jim has served as the division president in 3 California-based banks: Pacific Western Bank, First California Bank, and Palm Desert National Bank, with primary specialty in treasury, digital payments, electronic banking, with a focus in the area of high-risk accounts and transaction banking services for business and consumers. I am Radhika Dholakia-Lipton, and I'm the president and CEO of RAD LLC. We are a boutique compliance and internal audit firm based in Southern California. I too have about 30 years of all forms of banking experience, from being a teller to being a chief risk officer. My firm offers a variety of internal audit services and compliance services. And we are excited to talk to you today about banking cannabis. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jim.
Good afternoon. Our presentation today is actually designed around covering a few different areas to hopefully help lay a foundation for our discussion, and also to explain some of the areas around bank-wide risk. As each of you have a copy of this PowerPoint, I'm going to go through the slides quickly and not try to read each slide to you. We do want to provide a history of marijuana, give you a basic understanding of medical marijuana versus recreational marijuana, give you an understanding with a bit of humor what banking marijuana today involves, and explain and help to identify some of the questions around strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats of cannabis banking and bank-wide risk. And is this something that the bank should consider?
And stay tuned at the end, because I'm going to ask Jim a bunch of questions from a banking and risk professional perspective.
So banks and regulators recognize that banks are in the business of assessing and taking appropriate risks consistent with their charter and the business strategy. So there is no question that banking in a high-risk type of a product line involves more work. And there is a clear understanding amongst the regulators that this is an item that is both high risk, but is also bankable. There are clear risks that must be understood and weighed, but they are no different from any other higher risk products a bank may choose to bank. Next slide. Medical marijuana has grown very rapidly in the number of states that have approved medical marijuana. Today, 36 states have varying levels of approval for medical marijuana. As many of you probably read and understand, the issue about medical marijuana has grown with an understanding of the many things that cannabis potentially can help or assist in. Many of the hospitals today are involved in use of cannabis for their patients, and many doctors are now subscribing this. The reputational risk that existed even 5 years ago for cannabis has changed dramatically, with public opinion being represented with large poll numbers as shown, with approving medical marijuana as a legal pharmaceutical drug. The public attitudes towards medical marijuana truly are changing and continue to change. As indicated, the CBS News poll found that 86% of Americans believe individuals should be able to receive marijuana. The federal government, however, continues to classify marijuana as Schedule I, which is aligned with heroin and LSD. That specifies that there's no currently accepted medical use. For the number of states who have gone through the process of medical marijuana approval, the Board of Physicians of that state have approved that and approved what it is to be used for. Just as a note, codeine is Schedule III. That gives you an idea of how dramatic the difference is between what was initially classified as a Schedule I drug and something like codeine. In the science of marijuana, there are over 100 cannabinoids, which are the chemical compounds found in cannabis sativa. The most common is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is THC. It is the primary psychoactive hallucinogenic for cannabis. Cannabinol, CBD, is another major cannabinoid, and it has analgesic, anti-inflammatory, and anti-anxiety properties with no psychoactive effects. That's why you hear many discussions around CBD and THC. CBD, as a matter of classification, does not rise to the level of THC until it reaches a certain level of THC compounding. When THC achieves more than 0.03 grams per weight, at that point in time, it becomes a THC cannabis regulated drug as opposed to CBD. The attached slide gives you an idea of the states that have legalized medical marijuana. It explains those that are further CBD specific, those that are operational, those are not yet functional, and those not yet operational. So many have approved, but are still working through some of the regulations for full operational structure of the program. Next slide. So one of the questions, obviously, that weighs on the legislators and individuals who are balancing this each day are the actual tax revenues that are being collected today on annual marijuana tax. This gives you an idea, this slide provides an idea of what the tax basis is that helps each of the individual states who have adopted cannabis as a product line within that given state. So in that structure, it is important to understand that taxes today are being collected in cash because most of cannabis is not banked. So this is a very difficult process. First of all, to assure that the taxes are in fact collected. And second, when you're moving that kind of money back and forth, to do it safely. That continues to be a challenge and will continue to be a challenge until the legislative action is taken at a federal level to remove the barriers to banking. We need to rethink pain management as we think about cannabis. For many of us, we grew up in an environment where we believed that cannabis itself was a very wicked drug. But we have found, and it has been discovered by many of the physicians who have looked at this, by many of the states who have reviewed it, that pain management can best be handled, in many cases, through cannabis. There are a number of different individuals who have been medically retired and could not function in their jobs, and today are operating on cannabis oils or derivatives to make it through a day and be able to work and to become productive again in what they've done. If you page down. So we do have a war that is underway to some degree between big pharma and cannabis. And it's an obvious war because at this point in time, individual drug companies are paid based on pills they prescribe. Individuals who are using cannabis or who are provided cannabis are not in that structure. Therefore, there is a lot of money at stake, especially for the big pharmaceutical companies.